Welcome to week number 3 of That Football Show with those fantasy guys.
And we are those fantasy guys.
Here we go. Before we get started, I want to thank UPTV in Urbana, Illinois, and SCTV in Searsport, Maine for adding us. Welcome to the show.
Woo! Welcome to the show. We're here to talk about football, fantasy football. We'll let you know. We're not going to talk about Peyton Manning and Tom Brady and Calvin Johnson. You know you should start them. We're here to tell you about the guys you might not think about starting or when a good time it is, maybe to sit one of those studs down because they have a bad matchup.
Let's get right into it. Week number 2 was a market correction for some big-name players in the NFL, namely RG3, Marshawn Lynch, Antonio Gates, Calvin Johnson, Dez Bryant, and Julio Jones. Meanwhile, big performers in Week 1 who came up short in Week 2 included Anquan Boldin, Brian Hartline, and Peyton Manning coming back down to earth. And also in week number 2, some pleasant surprises, namely James Starks and no Sean Marino, including Eddie Royal with 5 touchdowns after 2 weeks. What do you think about those players?
I think those players, a lot of market corrections happen. People that were supposed to perform well out of the gate that didn't are showing some signs of life. Some people like Eddie Royal are still flying high, and some people like, I don't know, Tom Brady. Is that hard even beating? Is he even playing? Are you thinking about putting him on the bench? Stay right here. We'll get to that a little bit later.
Foreshadowing. Injury report time. You see it on the screen. Eddie Lacy, Maurice Jones-Drew, Steven Jackson, Ray Rice, the Gronk, and Dwayne Allen out for the season. Big things in Indiana.
Yeah, that's pretty big. The problem is there's so many other tight ends that are available. I'm not sure if Cody Fleener's value is going to rise or fall. We are looking at him. Andrew Luck looked at him a little bit earlier in the season, a whole week ago. But what I want to talk about is all those running backs being hurt. We're bubbling up with some lesser name guys, people that you might not have heard of, people that are big into football and fantasy football know who these guys are, but now they're important for you to know who they are. We're talking about Bernard Pierce, James Starks, who you were in love with a couple of years ago.
2 years ago.
Helped you out big time. And then the big question is, in Atlanta, we have Steven Jackson going down and Jacquizz Rodgers or Jason Snelling. Who do you think is the more fantasy relevant player?
I mean, I got to go, and I've thought about this actually, exact question, not knowing that you were going to ask me it. I got to go with Snelling because of what I saw last week. He just had more production with his carries, and he knows the system a little bit better. He's been around a little bit longer, and he's a banger.
And he's going to get the touchdown. I mean,
yeah,
if all things being equal, he's going to vulture the touchdowns.
Yeah.
So if everything else is equal and they get equal playing time, when they're on the goal line, he's going to be getting the carries. So I agree, Snelling's the guy to get because neither one of them is going to produce like a stud standout back like Bernard Pierce could or James Starks could. Either one of those guys for a 2 or 3 week span could put up 100 yards and 2 touchdowns. But these guys are going to be splitting the carries. So if you have to get one of them because you lost some people to injury, I think Snelling is the guy to get just because he is more guaranteed to get touchdowns. I think Jacquizz Rodgers might be more guaranteed to produce more NFL numbers. Oh, he had 80 yards and 5 catches for another 23 yards, but not getting in the end zone. Snelling might have 7 carries for 14 yards, but 2 of them are goal line bombs.
The scores are going to end up the same at the end of the day either way. But So go with the touchdowns on a high-powered offense.
Yep.
Let's move on to sneaky starts. It's on the screen. Jay, why don't you start off this week? Who'd you have last week?
Last week I took a big swing and a miss. I went out on a limb. I have no problem doing that every now and then. I said go with Terrelle Pryor. Terrelle Pryor ended up 19 to 29 for 217 yards, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. But one of the people I did specifically say you could start him over was Colin Kaepernick, and I think he outscored Colin Kaepernick.
We will get to that.
He's in negative numbers.
We will get to Colin Kaepernick. Don't worry. Last week I had Deangelo Williams. Deangelo Williams went 22 for 89 and was worth 8 points in standard scoring leagues. Now, the target for a third player, flex player, is about 10 points. So if you went with Deangelo Williams in the flex position, you were doing okay. So that brings us to this week. Who do you have?
This week, I'm a big Seattle Seahawks fan, and I have, if you've been watching us for a couple of weeks, I'm pretty low on Jacksonville. And those two teams are meeting this week, and I just think it is going to be a mass destruction. And I think a sneaky start you can get this week at a wide receiver position is Doug Baldwin. On the year, he only had 1 catch last week, but the week before he had 7 catches. So on the year, he has 8 catches for 124 yards. And the week before, he had a touchdown in the end zone that was called back. They went right back to that same play and threw a touchdown to a different receiver against Carolina 2 weeks ago. But the original play was to Doug Baldwin, and it was called back on a penalty. So he doesn't have any touchdowns yet this year, but I think that Jacksonville's offense is a mess. Seattle's defense could score mad points. And if you heard about some San Francisco fans calling up and complaining that the stadium was too loud, I hate San Francisco fans. They are so pretentious. The stadium's too loud. We want to go back to when you would have to have the referee stop the game and say, if the crowd doesn't quiet down, we're not going to let them play. Just make me physically nauseous. But anyways, I don't think the crowd's going to be as excited when Jacksonville comes into town, but that crowd they have the stadium constructed in such a way that amplifies the sound. So if they get up and there's blood in the water, I think the defense is going to go crazy. I think they're going to get plenty of short fields, and I think that's going to give Doug Baldwin a couple opportunities because Seattle is so strong in the run game. I think they're still working out the pass game a little bit, so I think they might get the lead, and they might I don't think they want to wear out Marshawn Lynch this early in the season. You don't need to waste them on Jacksonville. So I think they're going to throw the ball a little bit more than you might expect, and I think Doug Baldwin's going to be the recipient of that. I'd play him over people like Reggie Wayne against the 49ers. I'd play him over against Roddy White. He's got that bum ankle. James Jones from 1 week to the next. Who knows what you're going to get. I think he's a safe pick that you could play over a couple of ranked wide receivers.
I certainly agree with your call on Seattle having some short fields. I don't know if Jacksonville even gets a first down this week.
They might not.
Because that defense looked pretty good against the 49ers last week. This week I have Sam Bradford. On the season, he's 59 for 93, 651 yards and 5 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Now, Bradford is somebody that you might still be able to get off your waiver wire. His ownership is going up this week after a 2-touchdown performance, but he might still be floating out there. He is finally starting to look like an NFL quarterback now that he has some wide receivers and playmakers around him in Jared Cook, Austin Pettis, Tavon Austin, and he's playing the Cowboys. And if you look at the Cowboys' defense, they've given up the 5th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. They've given up 6 passing touchdowns to quarterbacks over 2 weeks. And Sam Bradford, really all his production has come in the second half of football games when they're losing. I think Dallas gets up early at home over St. Louis, and the Rams are going to have to throw the ball against what Fisher wants to do. Fisher wants to run the ball, control the clock, play a close game. But when they get behind, they have no choice. Well, Sam Bradford's looked pretty darn good throwing the ball when he has no choice. And I think they're going to be playing catch-up to the Cowboys. I think he goes for 300 yards and no less than 2 touchdowns this week, and I'll take him as my sneaky start.
I think it's quite amazing. I think you're slowly revealing your secret man crush on the Rams. You're going with Dale Richardson for sneaky start, Sam Bradford for sneaky starts, Isaiah Peed coming next week, or what?
No Isaiah Peed, but there is no secret about my man crush on Sam Bradford. I think he's the real deal, and I think he's about to show the rest of the NFL this season that that's the truth. Let's move on to Tough Sit.
Sit down, Waldo.
There is the best intro on the show. Last week, I told you to sit Colin Kaepernick, and everybody was like, what? Because he had 4 touchdowns and 450 yards in week 1. How do you sit a guy like that? But I said sit him. And if you did sit him, you were very happy you did, because he came out and he stunk up the field. He stunk up the stadium. It was so loud in there, you couldn't even smell the stink over the loud. And he went for 13 for 28 for 127 yards and 3 interceptions. Are you kidding me? There was wide receivers that caught more yards. There were running backs who ran for more yards. Colin Kaepernick was the worst start of the season so far. Will be probably the worst start of the season all season long, and you heard it here on TFS. Who'd you have last week?
Well, we're pretty much going in the same boat. Your start was awful, but my start was atrocious. My guy had Frank Gore going as a tough sit. and Frank Gore had 16 carries for 14 yards. He had negative yards a carry. It doesn't get any worse than that. In fantasy football, you almost, if you're a starting running back, you can fall forward and get yards and get points, but not this week. Frank Gore, terrible start. I think we both lined up with that. I think we realized that on the show that we both are going with Seattle.
Seattle
I think we pretty much, I think it's pretty funny because I think the nation was split on San Francisco, Seattle, Seattle, San Francisco, TFS. If you were watching the show, you heard who we thought was going to win that game because both of our tough sits played for San Francisco, and I don't think either one of us expected our tough sits to do as bad as they did.
No, it was pretty pathetic.
Yeah, it was awful. So that was my tough sit last week, and I feel pretty righteous about that call.
Now, here's what I have to say about this week's tough sit. As Jay likes to say on the show, you know when the show is shot, so the Thursday game is played by the time you see this show. I really, really wanted to take the entire Phillies offense as my tough sit this week. I'm talking LaShawn McCoy, I'm talking Michael Vick, and I'm talking Deshaun Jackson. I think that this week, and this is a moot point because it's already happened, but in my opinion, I think that this week it all ends with Andy Reid's homecoming. That being said,
I agree with you right here. And the reason why I agree with you, Chip Kelly's used to playing in Oregon where he gets, to set up his schedule how he wants. Oh, I got a tough game. I'm going to get a bye week before that game.
Short week.
He has a short week. He doesn't know how to prepare for a short week. Michael Vick is banged up, and his clock management was so bad last week. I think he's going to overcompensate and might somehow handcuff himself when maybe he should be going for it. And, hey, there's an opportunity for me to unleash the dogs, and he's not going to because he's going to be afraid because we don't live in Philadelphia. But I can only imagine how bad they must be ripping him for absolutely costing him the game when they had the game in control going down. Now, granted, they were just going down to tie the game but with a chance to tie or win the game or what have you. And then you go so fast that you give the team minute 56 and 2 timeouts to go down and kick a field goal. Who does that? And I honestly think he is going to have a brain cramp, seizure, whatever, and I think he's going to be handcuffed, and I think you're 100% right.
Yeah, well, we will all know by the time this airs if we're right about that.
Nostradamus will be telling you about that in a little bit anyways.
Oh, fantastic. I can't wait for that. That's a little foreshadowing.
My tough sit this week, he's a guy that I have pretty close to my heart. 2 years ago, I drafted him way early because we're in a keeper league, and I said this is going to be my quarterback that's going to lead me to championships for the next decade. But this week he's got a tough matchup. Andrew Luck's flying cross country playing San Francisco. I think they might have a little, I don't know what to call it, revenge, irritation, something to prove. But
chip on the shoulder.
Chip on their shoulder. Thank you very much. And they're going to come out. And I have a lot of faith in Andrew Luck, and I have a lot of faith that he's going to be a phenomenal quarterback for the next 12, 14 years. But this week, I don't like the matchup flying across the country. On the year, he's 43-66 for 499 yards, four touchdowns, 3 passing, 1 rushing, and an interception. But in their 29-3 loss to Seattle last week, they held Russell Wilson to 8 for 19 and 142 yards. And I find that Seattle has a lot more options on their offense. They have a solid running game. They have dynamic wide receivers. And I'm not saying that the Colts don't have dynamic wide receivers. I'm just saying, I don't think San Francisco is going to be worried about the Colts running game, which is going to kind of allow them to pin their ears back and bang Luck around. And I think he's just going to have a pretty bad game.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And something else to keep in mind about the Colts is they had an offensive lineman go down. They had a tight end go down who sometimes blocks on the offensive line. And they're going up a defense that's pretty nasty. I mean, they're ranking right in the middle of the league right now, but they are much better than where their ranking is. Oh, and by the way, T.Y. Hilton last week had a big game. So I've been riding that T.Y. Hilton horse all season. He finally came through. But this week I'm with you. I don't think this is the week to go with the Colts.
Yeah, there's a couple of quarterbacks I think that you might be able to get out there and start over Luck. Rivers, who's off to an unbelievably hot start.
Incredible.
Eli Manning, Sam Bradford, like you said. E.J. Manuel might be a sneaky start against the Jets. The Jets don't really possess anything.
Rookie Bowl.
The Jets don't possess anything except to tear my heart out against the Bucks. Cutler's having a good season. Carson Palmer. So there are definitely some options out there. Chances are, I just named about 5 quarterbacks. So chances are you have one of these guys as a backup. If you have Luck, you probably have one of these guys as a backup.
Get Bradford off the wire, like
it's very possible.
Earlier.
All right.
So let's move on to put up or shut up. Jay, who you got for put up or shut up?
I mean, we just saw the Manning Bowl last week, and I keep seeing on ESPN commercials for the 60 for 60 with the Mannings.
Looked like the no Sean Moreno
Well,
Bowl to
one
me.
of those Mannings, let me tell you what, has been putting up, and the other Manning has looked awful. Eli Manning, 55 out of 91 for 802 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions.
That's
I mean,
ugly.
is this the result of absolutely David Wilson blowing up and they have no running game? Is this the result of it can't be, you can't say Hakeem Nicks is hurt, you can't say Cruz is hurt. The wide receivers are there. Last year he wasn't playing this bad. His running game wasn't all that great due to injury and what have you. But this year he's making poor decisions. He's forcing balls. He's throwing balls to wide open areas of the field where there's not a blue jersey in sight and people are picking it like in the end zone all by themselves. It's just weird. Eli Manning obviously is a 2-time winning Super Bowl champion. He has been MVP in a Super Bowl. The Giants cannot expect to just coast until week 10 and then turn it on. They need to get David Wilson up to speed now. Eli Manning needs to get his receivers on the same page. It is time to put up or shut up because Eli Manning can be a legit fantasy football option when he's got Hakeem Nicks and Victor Cruz. I mean, how many teams have 2 legit wide receivers like that? Like 3 or 4? Yeah. He's got 2 great receivers. There's no excuses for him not to be putting up numbers. Put it up or shut up, Eli.
Wall Street, you see it on the screen. Buy low, sell high. Jay, why don't you start us off? Who you got this week?
Well, I'm going to go to the top of the mountain and say you can't get any higher than the leading touchdown receiver in the league at this point in time, Eddie Royal.
Yeah.
5 touchdowns. I don't think he's had 5 touchdowns in the past 3 years. He used to be a pretty decent kick returner in Denver, and every now and then he'd have a big play. Guy's on fire. 3 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns. You cannot get any hotter, and you cannot have any further to fall. If you have Eddie Royal, see what you can get for him now. There's probably somebody that's 0-2 that's desperate for a wide receiver and thinks that Eddie Royal is going to score 37 touchdowns this year. Let me tell you what, he's not. He has no more value in the history of his existence than he does as you watch this show right now. If he scores 0 touchdowns this week, now he has 5 touchdowns in 3 weeks, not 5 and 2, and it's on the decline. So if you can trade Eddie Royal now, trade him for whatever you can. I mean, get what you can. Get a tight end. Get Cameron Jordan. Get something for him because Cameron Jordan, from this point forward, is going to score more touchdowns than Eddie Royal.
Well, I think that what we're seeing here is that just as surprised as you are that Eddie Royal has 5 touchdowns, the opposing coaches are just as surprised. But now there's 2 weeks worth of tape on him. Now they know the routes that he's running. Now they know the situation that Phillip Rivers wants to go to Royal in, and they're going to take him away. And I think that you're right. If you're going to trade Eddie Royal, this is the week to do it. Get him off your team. Get somebody with much more upside than Eddie Royal. I'm going to go on the flip side of that. And I'm going to go and I'm going to tell you that right now, what you're about to hear in the history of buy low, sell high, there has never been a more sure-fire buy low than Tom Brady. Tom Brady is on the polar opposite of the spectrum of Eddie Royal right now. Please interrupt me.
I thought we had a market correction earlier this week. So if the market has corrected, he is what he is.
The market has not fully corrected,
okay.
And I'm going to tell you why. I'm sure you know that. Tom Brady right now is an absolute low for value. Tom Brady is a multi-Super Bowl winning quarterback. He is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He has done more with less than any quarterback in the history of the NFL. I will say that. I will stand by that statement.
Yeah, but he has less now, and he's not doing anything with it.
Ready? Here we go. Because I like 4s this season, because we're in season number 4 of TFS, I'm going to give you 4 reasons why Tom Brady stock should turn around and rise. Number 1, he can't get any lower. His value can't go any lower than it is right now. There are 21 quarterbacks in the NFL. 21 quarterbacks in the NFL that have more fantasy points than Tom Brady. Tom Brady, with the way he's performing right now, shouldn't deserve a roster spot. right? Because there's 21 guys. So in a 10-team league, if everybody's got 2 quarterbacks, that leaves Tom Brady on the outside looking in. Reason number 2 is it's not Tom Brady's fault. Now, he has overthrown a couple of passes, but that happens to every quarterback. You get an errant throw. It happens. The problem is the rookie wide receivers on the team and the lack of talent at the wide receiver position. The rookie wide receivers will get better as the season goes on. What you saw in week 1 was rookies playing in their first NFL game. What you saw in week 2 was rookies playing 3 days later. They didn't have a chance to correct the problems. Now they've had a full off week. I think you're going to see a marketable improvement in Tom Brady and his rookie wide receivers in week number 3. However, they're playing a very good Tampa Bay defense, so I don't think this is the week that you really see the turnaround. I think that's coming week 4, week 5, week 6, and as we go on. And to that point, Tom Brady, even with these awful wide receivers, this is point number 3, by the way, is still completing 52% of passes. Now, if you've watched any of these Patriots games, it's mind-boggling to think that he's actually completed 52 passes because every pass hits the ground. I think some of those catches actually hit the ground, but the ref missed the call. I think that they scooped the ball up off the ground. You see some dirt flying up from underneath the football because they have looked terrible. But he's still completed 52% of passes. And reason number 4, Rob Gronkowski is coming back this week, if not this week, next week. And what that does, just by putting Rob Gronkowski on the field, I don't care if you throw to him, throw over him a couple times just to make the defense think that you're going to go at him. By putting him on the field, the attention that he gathers is going to open up other things for these rookie wide receivers. Now, we've already seen when the rookie wide receivers are wide open, they catch touchdowns. But when there's a little bit of coverage, a little bit of bump and run, they can't catch anything. By putting Gronk out there, you're going to pull defenders into the center of the field. It's going to leave the sides wide open, and you're going to see some big passes to these rookie wide receivers. If I had to give you another 5, just one for the go, it's that Amendola has avoided surgery and will be back in week 5. Tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, I remember that there was this one game, they were, what was their record? 18-0, and they just put Gronk on the field. He was hurt, and their whole plan was to use him as a decoy. How'd that go?
They were playing a Super Bowl team.
I'm just saying, how'd that go?
But they were playing a Super Bowl team.
But one of your points was to use Gronk, whether he's healthy or not. Him on the field is going to open everything else up. How did that work?
You can't compare. Okay, I will answer your question, and then I will explain why you're wrong. It did not work. Why you're wrong is because you can't compare the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are falling apart all over the place, to a team like the Giants of their Super Bowl run that were absolutely rolling when they went to the Super Bowl. You can't compare those two
I'm not
teams.
comparing them. I was just saying.
Yes, you are.
No, because you were saying one of your points was just put Gronk on the field and it makes everything okay, and it didn't work.
I'm not saying it makes everything okay. I'm saying it makes everything better.
Okay.
Okay.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
All right.
Now my question is, like, now you're talking about this is a buy low, so I'm just wondering,
Absolutely.
where would you see? I don't have Tom Brady, and I'm looking to get Tom Brady. What kind of, because this is like a two-part question, because a lot of people, and I find this all the time, I want to trade for that guy, so I'm going to offer you this. And it's like, well, I don't need another wide receiver or whatever, because you have to look at what the person you're trading with needs. So, like, what would you say, number one, is what appears to be fair market value for Tom Brady, but where you'll actually win in the end because Tom Brady's value is going to rise.
Okay, so perfect. I was talking about this with our director, Shane Brown, right before we started. In a scenario, obviously you need to find a Tom Brady owner who has a valuable quarterback as a backup. A perfect scenario is a guy who drafted Tom Brady in the 4th or 5th round and then picked up Phillip Rivers as a fill-in. Phillip Rivers has been playing out of his mind. If you don't live in New England, where the show is shot, Tom Brady doesn't mean anything to anybody except for the fact that he's been a terrible fantasy quarterback. So if you can get Tom Brady off of a team who has Phillip Rivers, who has RG3, who's doing everything in junk time, I understand, but he's still doing it, who had somehow had the luck to have Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. That guy is never going to start Tom Brady over Peyton Manning at this point in the season. So now, if you're somebody who picked up Eddie Royal, or if you're somebody who has, let's say the Tom Brady team has Trent Richardson and C.J. Spiller, right? Those guys have been
Good draft.
right. It sounds like a good draft, right? Tom Brady, Trent Richardson, C.J. Spiller.
But they haven't done nothing.
Exactly. So now, if you're a guy who was crafty on the waiver wire and happened to land Noshawn Moreno in the draft, good for you, or is able to pick up James Starks, right? A guy whose value is so hot right now, like James Starks, you can offer him to a guy who has Brady and two underperforming running backs, and they'd snap that trade in a minute because they need help at the running back, not the quarterback. If you can sit on Brady, I'm telling you, by week 5 or week 6, they will get this straightened out in New England. I have faith in that.
Now, if you have a quarterback, say you drafted a quarterback, but you're looking to trade a quarterback straight up. Who's a quarterback whose value you think is going to go down while Brady's goes up? Like
Okay.
a Michael Vick or something like that. Do you think like Michael Vick for Tom Brady? If you had Michael Vick, would you trade him for Tom Brady and assume that moving forward, from this point forward, Brady's going to have more fantasy value?
I will throw different names at you because Michael Vick would never be on my football team because he's human scum. And I hope he sees this, and you can call me. I would say that if you could trade somebody like a Carson Palmer, who's not off to an unbelievable start.
Yeah, but a Tom Brady owner is not going to trade Tom Brady for Carson Palmer.
But he will if he has a good backup quarterback that's playing above his level right now. Again, if he has a Phillip Rivers, or if he has a anybody. Like I said, if you were lucky enough to land Peyton Manning and Tom Brady, there's no scenario right now in fantasy football where you're going to say, oh, I think I'll start Tom Brady over Peyton Manning.
Well, Peyton Manning is playing the Raiders this week, so yeah, no, that's not going to happen.
But this is my point. So, and it would never happen unless Brady rebounds huge in this game, and then now you have to weigh your options. So my point is, find somebody with a weakness, like you said, that you have a strength in. Maybe you have 3 good wide receivers. Maybe you have 3 good running backs. Maybe you have 2 good tight ends. Maybe that's the key, is maybe you have, Jared Cook, and you were able to land, what's the guy from Denver?
Julius Thomas?
Julius Thomas in free agency. If you've got those 2 tight ends and you find a team that has Tom Brady and a starving at tight end, you offer them that trade. I'm telling you, people will snap that right up.
Fair
you think
enough.
I'm wrong?
I don't think people are going to be hot to trade Tom Brady as fast. I think a lot of people have a wait-and-see approach. Hey, in 2 weeks, Gronk and Amendola are going to be back. Why am I going to trade Tom Brady now when he might be healthy? I understand where you're saying he's a buy low. There are a lot of impatient fantasy football owners out there,
Absolutely.
and if one guy has Tom Brady, then you might be able to take advantage of that. I agree with you 1,000,000%, but I don't think people are as hot to trade Tom Brady as you are making it sound.
Well, I don't think that they're giving Tom Brady away, but I think that if you find the right scenario in the right league with a team who has a weakness and you have a strength, I don't think it's a second thought. I think you dump Tom Brady and you take that weakness and turn it into a strength.
Fair enough.
With that said, let's move on to the guarantee.
I guarantee it. I guarantee it.
I have a guarantee. I am so sure about Tom Brady that I will guarantee that the Patriots get this straightened out in New England and turn it around. I've had enough of talking about the New England Patriots
Me too.
and Tom Brady. Let's move on to Roy's rant. We'll be back right after this rant.
Thanks, Rick and Jay. This week's Roy's rant is directed at Gary Kubiak, who after week 1 saw his starting running back Arian Foster struggle, came to the press and declared Ben Tate and Arian Foster would be splitting the carries 50-50. This week's game comes along after I had recommended Arian Foster as a tough sit and urged some people to start Ben Tate. Third play of the game, Ben Tate's first carry of the game for himself breaks off a 60-yard run. Wasn't a touchdown, but it got him inside the red zone, and 2 plays later they scored on a passing play. But I still felt good recommending him, as I knew I had more than 3.5 quarters to go and should be topping easily over 100 yards and get a touchdown. But lo and behold, by the time the game's done, Arian Foster ended the game with 19 carries for 79 yards and a touchdown. Ben Tate ended with 8 carries for breaking out the longest play of the game, he was only fed the ball 7 more times. Gary Kubiak, what the hell are you doing? Ben Tate's already shown you he's the more explosive player this year. He's healthy, and he's looking more assertive cutting through the holes. You need to start this running back now. But on top of that, you need to not be telling people you're going to split carries with a running back when you don't do it. I suppose in the end, the rant really should be about me. What was I doing believing a disciple of Mike Shanahan, the man who for so many years really gave fantasy owners headaches with his misinformation about running backs and changing who would start almost on a weekly basis for several years at Denver. Oh, Gary Kubiak, what have you done to me now? Back to you guys.
Thank you very much, Paul Roy, for that rant. Jay, don't be that guy.
I'll tell you what, I'm not going to be that guy, and I'm having a pretty good fantasy football season so far. 3-1, I would like to say. You know, we're doing all right. But one thing I don't like is when someone has played 2 weeks and they'll start to say, hey, I'm 2-0. Not bad, huh? Give me a freaking break. The Dolphins are 2-0. Does anybody think they're doing anything? Because you're doing good 2 weeks in doesn't mean anything. Don't be that guy that starts talking trash after 2 weeks. Nobody likes him.
It would be fantastic if the Miami Dolphins won the Super Bowl this year after you said that.
It would be fantastic. But I have a guarantee. The Miami Dolphins are not winning the Super Bowl this year.
I guarantee it.
If you like the show and you're on Facebook and you can't believe what we've said and you have to show all your friends, like us on Facebook, share the shows, we post them there. You can find us on Facebook at
That Football Show with those fancy guys. Check it out, ask a question, post a comment. We'll get to you. We'll answer you either on the site or on the show. Either way, we do have a couple of questions this week. Number 1, I have a problem at my flex position. I'm not sure if I should start Tavon Austin after his 2-touchdown explosion last week or T.Y. Hilton, Rick's Whoopi. Who do you think I should start? Thank you very much, Lawrence Jackson. What do you think?
This is a tough question. And I'll tell you why it's a tough question. The reason why it's a tough question is because Tavon Austin is a rookie who, now rookies famously have up and down performances. So if you think of it on those terms, this would be a down week for Tavon. T.Y. Hilton I love, so it makes it difficult that way. But T.Y. Hilton has a tough matchup against the San Francisco 49ers. So I really have to sit down and think about this one.
Should I get you a chair?
You should get me a chair because this one is a ponderer. You know, this is one that you have to kind of sit and just think.
You are on the clock.
You have to think on this
You're
one.
on the
How much
clock.
time do I have?
How much time do you want?
I need more.
Okay. Should we come back to this one?
No.
All right.
Let's deal with it now. Okay. Right now, currently, we shoot the show on Wednesday. It was just reported that T.Y. Hilton did not practice today. If T.Y. Hilton does not practice on Thursday, I think you start Tavon Austin.
So that's what you're hanging on. Check the injury report. Whether or not T.Y. Hilton starts, practices Thursday. If T.Y. Hilton practices Thursday, you are saying play T.Y. Hilton.
No. You got that backwards. I'm sorry. Let me correct you. What I'm saying is if T.Y. Hilton does not practice on Thursday, 100% start Tavon Austin.
But are you saying if?
No.
All right then.
Now, even if T.Y. Hilton practices on Thursday in full, you really have to stop and consider what the 2 games are going to be like. I think that the 49ers, after the embarrassment in Seattle, I think that they're going to come out and try really hard, but I don't know how far they're going to get. This could be a low-scoring game, which is not good for T.Y. Hilton. The Dallas-St. Louis game, I've already said I think is going to be a high-scoring game. I'm ready to make my decision.
All right. Can I get a drum roll, please?
I think you got to go Tavon Austin.
Woo! That was worse than pulling teeth. I kind of agree with you. The question wasn't for me. The question was for you. So we'll let it stay at that. I kind of agree with you. I think after a 2-touchdown week, I think the defense that the 49ers brings to the table, I already said Andrew Luck's a tough start. So, I'm kind of rolling with you on that one. Now I have another question for you.
Oh, you're killing me
Oh,
today.
and this one is just as difficult.
How come you get the easy ones about Tony Romo or Andrew Luck against the Raiders?
That was not an easy one.
I could have answered that one much easier.
Yeah,
All right, that was week 1. Go to Facebook.
Let's go back and check it out. I was right on that one, too.
Okay.
All right, so I have great show, guys. I've been offered a trade. Let me know what you think. I have been offered Julio Jones for Dez Bryant. What are your thoughts? Appreciate your time. Have a nice day.
Here's my first thought. I don't understand why either owner would make this trade. Julio Jones and Dez Bryant, I'm going to put them like 4 and 5 or 5 and 6 on the fantasy value chart. So I don't really understand what you have to gain by trading Julio Jones for Dez Bryant or Dez Bryant for Julio Jones.
Can I just throw a hypothetical out there? Because things like this happen all the time. Maybe one or both of the guys has Matt Ryan or Tony Romo, and they're looking for the hookup.
Okay. Okay, so if this is a complex answer, just like the last one, I'm going to talk until you have no idea what I'm talking about. If I own Julio Jones and an owner with Matt Ryan and Dez Bryant is offering me Dez Bryant for Julio Jones, I'm going to try and get a little something extra out of that owner because the owner with Matt Ryan is looking for the hookup. He's the one who's offering the trade, so he's the one who has the want. I'm perfectly okay with Dez Bryant or Julio Jones on my fantasy football team.
What if you have Tony Romo?
Yes.
And you're trying to get Dez Bryant.
So now I have Tony Romo and Julio Jones.
No, let's say
I'm making the offer.
You have Tony Romo
and Julio Jones.
And Julio Jones.
Yes, I understand.
I have Dez Bryant.
Yes.
And let's just say Andrew Luck.
Okay. Well, I would just offer the trade to you straight up because I'm smarter than you, and I would hope that you accept it.
Okay. So what would you propose to the person I do? What would the counteroffer be?
I think that the counteroffer, if you're trading to the team to give them the hookup, that owner wants that player more than you want to trade your player. I think you got to get a little something extra out of them. I don't know what that is. I don't know, again, if it's tight end help, maybe it's Tom Brady.
So
that would never happen.
So what you're saying is this answer cannot be answered
definitively.
Player for player.
Player for player, it doesn't matter. It's a wash.
But if one person has the hookup, then the person that doesn't have the hookup should be looking for
try to get a little sweetness,
sugar, little something, little
something on top, right?
All right.
Because you gotta weigh the want. You know, like I said, I'm totally okay with Julio Jones or Dez Bryant on my team, and I think that a player for player trade like that is just a complete push.
Right. So what you're saying is you got to measure the want, and all I know is everybody wants some.
There you go. Let's move on to Nostradamus.
Nostradamus.
I'll say it again. Let's move on to Nostradamus.
Boom. Wednesday. Rick said it about 3 times. We record on Wednesday, but there's a big game tomorrow night. And I was looking into the future as what was going to happen in this game.
We should get you a crystal ball.
I do. I need a crystal ball to rub. That'd be fantastic. But, yes. So what's going to happen here? We got Andy Reid coming back to Philadelphia. The guy's only been out of town for 4 months. Coming back, Thursday night game. I love the way the NFL does that. Chip Kelly, as we already discussed, I don't think he's going to – 3 days is just too short. After the meltdown last week and how they coughed up that game, losing to a team at 1 o'clock coming from the West Coast on a short week because they played late Sunday night, that's just awful. I actually have faith in the Chiefs. The Chiefs are going to win this, and do you want to know why?
I want to know why, because I want you to be right so badly.
I see it. The short week is going to be a problem for Michael Vick, and I see an injury to Michael Vick.
Yes!
And I don't think that the Philadelphia offense runs at the same speed with the same precision without Michael Vick. I think he's going to get hurt, not long term, but I think he'll get knocked out of the game because of the short week and the ill-prepared Chip Kelly putting a game plan together. And if you've watched, Michael Vick has not shied away from contact. He is diving forward every chance he gets. I think he's going to get hit, maybe going out of bounds, get the wind knocked out of him, and and the Chiefs are going to win 24-17.
Ooh, close game on Thursday Night Football. I can't wait to watch that one and find out if you're right. Let's move on to Survivor picks. You see them on the screen. Jay has been eliminated. Everybody else is 2-0. This week, our director, Shane Brown, takes the Seattle Seahawks over the Jacksonville Jaguars. A real stretch on that one. Also, Paul Roy going with the same Seattle team. And I'll take Denver over Oakland.
Because that's a real stretch.
Granted, it's not a stretch, but the Jacksonville Jaguars, as I stated earlier, kind of look like a high school football team to me.
So you're saying that they're going out on a stretch, and you're picking against the high school football team on Monday night against Peyton Manning.
I think the Oakland Raiders look far better than the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Well, they did just beat
and
them
they proved it last week.
week.
That's all the time we have for this week's show, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. If you join us again next week, we will have more fantasy tips and more antics. This has been That Football Show with those fantasy guys.
We are those fantasy guys. You are not.
Good night, everybody.